News Talk.
And this is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5. Now, last weekend, Dublin beat Kerry on a scoreline of 18 points to 110 to win the All-Ireland Ladies Senior Football title for a sixth time. Their manager, Mick Bohan's in studio with me now. Mick, you're very welcome to Off the Ball Saturday.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
What have the last few days been like?
Rough.
You've been celebrating too much, have you?
For sure. There's a stage in your life where you're not able for it. I know, it's been fantastic. Yeah, just a phenomenal feeling now since whatever, 5:30 on Sunday afternoon.
So did you have a banquet or anything like that, or was it a day with the players, or how did the week unfold?
Yeah, Sunday evening, Castleknock Hotel, and a great opportunity for families and friends to get together just to celebrate. I'm sure the crew would have seen a little bit of Copperface Jacks on Sunday night. Thankfully, I didn't venture that far. Monday morning, a little bit of humility comes back into it. We were in Temple Street, and that's always it's an opportunity that's phenomenal to be given, because you're seeing kids at their most vulnerable and families obviously at their most vulnerable. So obviously to go in and bring a cup in and whatever, obviously some kids are hugely into it, and others it's a delicate one because you don't know their stories, and everyone obviously is in there, and it's a difficult time in their lives. So some people want to see it, I'm sure others don't, but obviously to be given the opportunity is fabulous. And then after that we ended up in Hugh Hurahan's in the Boar's Head, and then we had a trip to the Mansion House, and then fabulous evening for Carla in particular, out to Clonmore and the Nall, and a small village, and as their banner said over the last number of years, small village, big dreams. But to be given the opportunity for her to bring the cup home, was a very special time, and she was actually quite emotional, but the turnout out there was just fantastic.
It makes it worth it then, does it, to have those winter nights last November, December? You're not champions, you lose for a couple of years. There's a lot of soul searching for a team that won 4 in a row. It makes it all worth it, I expect.
Yeah, and we've said this a lot over the course of the week. We genuinely didn't foresee ourselves in this position. There was obviously a huge turnaround in the staff that we had. And a huge influx of young players, and it does take time. We've been there, we know what it takes to build it up. So to have done this so quickly, there were so many people to thank for it. My coaching staff this year were just so selfless, and they just emptied themselves in every bit of knowledge that we had. We tried to impart, and I've been terribly lucky over the last couple of years. I've pulled in, and obviously good friendships, and obviously some of the connections I would have had from the time I was involved with the lads team, and they've been just invaluable to me. But equally the senior players, I actually think, and I was talking to Carla about this, there's a template there for coaching, in that we were forced into requesting them to do more. We had to insist that they gave more back to the group, not just worried about themselves, that they had to take players under their wing, that they had to teach them the ropes, or else this was going nowhere. And there's definitely a template in it. I never leaned on it as much as
it's the leadership group, is it?
Not just the leadership group. Anyone who'd been around the scenes, anyone who knew the way that the system worked, anyone who knew, the language around the coaching that we would try and implement, that they became teachers or coaches in their own right, and they just grabbed the thing by the scruff of the neck. It was, and it's probably the most pleasing aspect of it all. Obviously we were there as coaches, constantly trying to give feedback, but the players themselves, with the knowledge that they imparted, and the amount of time, whether it was in a buddy system or going for a cup of coffee or on the field itself, that they were just imparting their own learnings.
You attacked Kerry from the off, and it was a whirlwind first half. And did you see that coming? Did you feel when the players went out to the pitch that we have this primed?
We knew they were coming. 8 weeks ago, when 8 weeks prior to the final, when we played Kerry we didn't know where we were at, and that's genuine. And that was obviously, a highly contested contest. But I still would have said to you 8 weeks ago that Kerry were way ahead of us. They had a couple of goal chances that day that they could have put away. They certainly seemed to negate our threats as the game went on. But we were equally aware of the fact that the tight surrounds of Parnell Park didn't suit us because we're a mobile team, and we felt on bigger pitches, which obviously, Semple Stadium and subsequently our Ballybuffet and then Semple Stadium and then obviously our Crow Park itself, they were hugely beneficial to us. So we didn't know, we couldn't have foreseen that we were going to storm into the game the way we did, or some of the points that were kicked, particularly by Hannah in that first half, are at a level that I certainly haven't seen before in the women's game. So we couldn't have foreseen that, but we knew the team were coming to prime at the right time.
Hannah Tyrrell had almost a Morris Fitzgerald final in that first half, 8 points, and there's a lot of talk about specialisation in sports, but she's now reached the top in soccer, rugby and Gaelic football, and you'd wonder if those disciplines also have helped her on the big stage.
Oh, I've no doubt they have, and it's her feats as a sportswoman, nearly stand alone in Irish sport at this stage. But it's a testament to her. But I would have spoken to her the other day about this. Again, she was one of the players who took a different approach this year, and the way she adapted to bringing other players in under her wing and helping them develop was a testament to her. And I think when you become selfless like that, it actually benefits you as a player.
Leah Caffrey did a fine job marking Louise Niemeyer-Hurtig. Is there a plan? Are there many conversations when you're having to tackle the marquee player of another team?
Well, we were very aware of the fact that we had to limit the supply because Louise is obviously a top drawer player, and if you give her enough opportunities, she's obviously going to convert. So while Leah had the job of taking her up, there was also, there was a combined effect in that there was a huge onus on others to make sure the supply could not be quality supply. But Leah's performance, Declan Darcy was on to me on Monday morning from a point of view of defensive performances, like it's as good as it gets. She played on the edge. She competed for absolutely every single ball, and I can't imagine Louise had as tough an afternoon ever before.
You talk about the edge there, and Declan Quill, the Kerry joint manager, said in his press conference Dublin won the game fair and square. He also remarked there were cynical fouls by her team. What would you say to that?
So this opens up a completely different debate because realistically, and I've watched the game back probably 5 or 6 times at this stage, we competed for every single ball in every single area of the field, which is exactly what you would want your Warriors to do. So cynical is a term. Somebody uses the word cynical and it gets thrown out and it's almost, we take it as if, oh yeah, that's cynical. But what is cynical? What do we actually see as cynical? So my interpretation of cynical is when someone's bearing down on goal and they're pulled to the ground. That's cynical. You've taken them out to stop them scoring a goal. So there should be a punishment for that, and realistically obviously the black card came into the lads' game in order to stop that type of stuff, because obviously with the Sean Kavanagh situation. So in our game, if you look, and there was a lot said after the game about the numbers of fouls and whatever else, every single ball that we go for we contest for. And if an opponent has the ball and they hold it in their arm in the ladies' game, you're not allowed tackle the ball until it comes out of their body. So that means every other aspect of the game they have to get right in order to implement that rule. So if you take 4 steps and you hold the ball into your body, we're not allowed to tackle the ball. On the 5th step, if you're still holding the ball into your body, well, you're now breaking the rules because you're only allowed 4 steps. So if we tackle the ball, are we now not allowed to tackle the ball? Because the rule states you're only allowed 4 steps. So if you implement the 4-step rule and you're not allowed to tackle the ball until it's released, that's fine, we'll deal with that. But on the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th step, what happens now? So there's another aspect of it, right? If I hold the ball into my body and I fend you off with my hand and you try to tackle the ball and now we're grappling, well, who's the transgressor now? The person carrying the ball or the person trying to tackle the ball? So if you look at the frees that we conceded during the course of the game, I would say to you 90% of them were in that category. So look, the two lads in charge of Kerry are good lads, and they brought that team a whole heap. You know, I mean, they brought them themselves. They were in the doldrums when they took them over. I can only imagine the hurt, and you know, they've lost. I wasn't there for our 3 in a row team when they lost, but you know, ultimately, one of those All-Ireland finals, our group lost. Carla Rowe scored a point that was deemed to be wide, and there was no talk after the game of anything, you know. So I'd say the lads probably will reflect, and they're probably disappointed that, you know, they gave out, because it wouldn't be the Kerry way. And ultimately, cynicism, like if you're going to throw out the word cynicism, back it up, and back it up with stuff that really makes sense. I've 2 young girls who play the game. They're 10 and 13, and I look at how I would want the game to be played in the future. What I would love to see get rid of in the game, because over the last number of seasons the game changed. You know, the defensive system came to the fore, just like it had in the men's game. Blanket defence became a popular system to play, and we lost out on that. We lost out to Meath, and we lost out to Donegal twice. And we had to have a good look at ourselves and say, you know, were we going to stay true to our own principles, or were we actually going to try and change the way we played? So we had to reflect on all of those things, right? But I look at the game, and the biggest no-no for me in the game would be, because you now are deemed not allowed to tackle the ball when it's in somebody's been held into their body. What has happened is players stand in front of the play or step across the player, they take the hit, they throw themselves back, and they get a free given to them. For me, well, if you talk about cynicism, that's cynicism, right? And it is a shocking spectacle to see. And any of the coaches that I have spoken to over the last number of years who I would value have said the exact same thing. So I know where I would want my kids to play and how I would want to play. And we have actually asked the LGFA over the last number of years to make one small adjustation to the rules. Allow players tackle the ball. That's all. Nothing else. And if you did that, you wouldn't have this situation of people putting their bodies in the way of, and then this whole thing of cynical or not cynical. Was what I'd ask people is this: was Sunday's game good viewing? Is it the way we want to see the game played? Or do you want to see it played with mass defences behind the ball?
You made your point strongly, Mick. Do you feel that you became a family? Are you a family, this Dublin setup?
Absolutely.
So how do you maintain your distance then?
I think anyone that knows me well enough would know I'm good at keeping my distance. What I have done particularly well is I brought in really good people around me. There's certain things I'm good at, and there's certain strengths I do not have. So at this 56th year on the planet, I'm pretty good at identifying the things I'm not good at. So I brought in people to do that. I would have grown up like yourself with a West of Ireland father, and he would have been a hard taskmaster. So there's a bit of that in me. I don't think that'll ever leave. So, you know, look, I have a good friend involved with us on the squad, Frankie Roebuck, and Frankie would have been involved with Jim's teams and has huge knowledge behind him. And as he would often say to me, you might be better off tickling the belly than casting the whip. Yeah,
carrot rather than stick. So when they have these programmes, you know, when you read a match day programme with All-Ireland final or whatever, you've 20 years ago and you've 10 years ago and you've now. So 20 years ago, Dublin's first ever All-Ireland final, you were in charge, and you lost to Mayo. Cora Staunton lobbed the ball in and they scored a goal. And 10 years ago, you were involved with Jim Gavin in the men's team. They beat Mayo. And you've kind of maybe said a little bit about how you evolved as a manager. But how good was Jim Gavin? Because the men's team, there's a lot of symmetry between what they did. Their last title was in 2020. They had a lot of hurt. They had a lot of soul searching. They had a lot of senior players, Sinead Ahern coming back. So what did you learn from maybe Jim Gavin that you've applied to the last few years?
I've been really lucky to work with a lot of people. Jerry McCall on the outset, like Niall Moyne and Tony Diamond in DCU. You know, I worked with Colm Collins in Clare for a year. And no matter where you go, you pick stuff up from people. Jim was a stickler to the organisation, to the system, to the, you know, it was very systematic under Jim, and everybody knew their role, including us involved in the management team. So there's bits from everyone that you pick up, and at the same time you have to impose yourself. You can't try to copy somebody else. If you do, you'll fall. So ultimately, I'm not quite sure that you go, well, this is the stuff that Jim did and this worked, or this is the stuff that Jerry McCall did and this worked. I think you take the pieces that you like from the way that you saw them run their setups and you use them. But ultimately, your own personality has to come out in it, and if you didn't do that, you'd end up in a fake.
So was your own personality much more there, say, by 17 than it was in 03? Mick Bohan way had that evolved into Mick Bohan
03. I mean, I look back at that time. I mean, I started off with the Dublin development squads. I was involved with Nafina, believe it or not, for the 3 in a row, and then I was involved coaching the girls for 1 year and then managed them in 03. And I look back now, I knew so little. I thought I knew it, but I knew so little.
What did you not know?
I didn't know how to manage a big occasion, that's for sure. I mean, we went into that game, and when I think of what we would do now around the big day compared to what we did then, and how you'd protect players and how you'd prepare them for that cauldron that they haven't been in before. And back in 03, that was the first Dublin senior team, ladies team, to ever get to an All-Ireland final. We didn't have a clue as a management team, and for them, we didn't protect them the way we should have.
Because you're heavily passionate about coaching, Mick, and obviously you've done it with the women's team and the men's team. Are there golden rules for anybody in terms of how you kick the ball, accuracy, tackling, movement, vision? Are there things that people need to know that maybe even the top players are getting wrong? Or would you even watch a men's inter-county game at the top level and go, oh my God?
Yeah. So there's a huge difference, and you asked me what changed or what I've got learnt. I remember back, and I would have obviously, my career as a PE teacher, you'd go in every day and you're doing basketball or rugby or Gaelic foot, doesn't make a difference, right? But I would have picked up drills, and I hate the word drills now. I don't use the word drills, right? I may use game relevant movement patterns, right? But I would have gone up to the St. Anne's Park and I would have watched a soccer warm-up, or I would have gone over to the rugby club and watched the rugby, and I'd take drills that looked good and I would have implemented them. But to what avail? I didn't understand, when you take them and you just throw them in and you don't know how to use them, well, then you're not doing anything for your team. So that was training. And then there's a complete difference between training and coaching, breaking down a kid's kick, or how to attack the ball in the air, or judging the flight of it, or how to block a ball, or your evasion skills. So adding those layers to players is coaching. The other stuff is training. So when I look back to 20 years ago, I was training teams. I'd like to think now I'm coaching teams.
What did you feel when you were watching the recent Dublin Kerry men's game?
Oh, pride. That was a special one. This year had a feel of the 2011 year all about it. I thought we were gone. 3 points down on 2 occasions, and I thought it was significant. Mick Fitz's sister Grania is involved with us this year, but I thought Mick Fitz's plea to the umpire was a significant moment in the game, but only him, because he's such a genuine fella. You nearly felt, and it's very rare you see an official change their mind and off. We always hear about, accept the decision and don't say anything, but he just felt so wronged. But that was a 2-point swing, wasn't it? We went up and scored a point, and they're the small margins in those big games. But at the end of that, I mean, I hadn't thought about it, because the day before we were playing an All-Ireland semi-final. But I just remembered that wave of emotion at the end of the game, and I think that's what was out on the pitch. It was phenomenal.
What now for you?
Don't know. Join my family tomorrow they're off in Spain at the moment, and I've missed them this week, obviously, with the celebrations, but I'll join them for a week, and the first person I'll speak to is them. I certainly owe them a bit of time. Well
done, Mick Bohan. Well deserved, and congratulations to the team and yourself, and hopefully many more to come.
Thank you very much.
Mick Bohan there, Dublin Ladies football manager. We will speak to the Irish racing driver James Rowe after this.
Here at News Talk, we've got some exciting original podcasts. Here's a snippet from Let Me Explain with Sean Defoe, an entertaining weekly series that deep dives into current affairs.
If we did have to don the gas masks, just how bad would it be?
If a 100 megaton bomb were dropped over the GPO, for example, everything in Dublin between Ballymun and Dundrum would be vaporised. Most homes would collapse and fires would rip through buildings, with huge fatalities in a further blast radius stretching from Balbriggan to Greystones. Thermal radiation would leave people with third-degree burns in a zone radius, while glass windows would shatter as far away as Newry.
We don't have any capacity to monitor our ocean space or our economic area.
This is Senator and security analyst Tom Clonan.
You know, they're saying to the Brits, you know, your anti-missile shield won't work because we'll do this underwater.
To hear the full podcast, go to newstalk.com, the Newstalk app powered by Go Loud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Off the ball. This is Newstalk.
Now we're delighted to have in studio Kildare's racing driver James Rowe, who's just earned a podium finish in the Indy Next series across the Atlantic. James, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, the Next series, this is just below IndyCar, which is the big American. It's not the same as Formula One, but it effectively is. It's the American Formula One to a degree. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. IndyCar is the pinnacle of US motorsport in North America. Massive, massive sport. Higher viewing figures than men's golf and UFC. 65 million avid IndyCar fans, and Indy Next is the official support series to it. So the final step on the ladder over in the North American scene.
You're with Andretti Autosport, so Mario Andretti, famous name, Michael Andretti. How did you get into this position where you're now one rung below IndyCar?
That's a good question. It's a lot of hard work over the years is basically what it comes down to. You know, I took a chance in 2018 right after I finished my leaving cert to pack my two bags up and move to America. I was never even in the country prior to that, even on a holiday, or knew nothing about it, and always had a goal and vision to get over there. So after my career here in Ireland and the UK, I said, okay, let's go to the US, because I could see a clear structure over there to get to the top. And thankfully that plan's working out. We went over there when I was, as I said, 18 years of age, and competed in F2000, which is the first rung of the open wheel ladder in North America, who wins and lap records that year, and then got a scholarship to go to US Formula 3 with Honda, and took it, and we won on it, and then into Indy Pro 2000, which is the middle rung of the ladder system in North America, and was with an Irish team out of Chicago, and things really just started clicking then, and we won on it, and yeah, here we are now with Andretti Autosport, and it's really comes down to the success on track, but also the support we get off track with our partners, amazing partners on board.
How does IndyCar differ to Formula One then? Because Formula One, you'd have the fast laps, and then you got to turn a lot of turns and chicanes, that kind of thing. It seems to me that Indy is much more like a round oval, and you just keep on going round.
Well, no, that's part of it, correct. But so in fact, it's quite different. So in our season, we do a mixture between road courses, which is permanent built racetracks throughout North America, and then we do ovals, which is as you described. So we do two oval events. Actually, my next weekend in St. Louis is an oval, and then we do street course races. So we race downtown Nashville, downtown Detroit. So over the course of the year, there's many different skill sets and driver and engineering requirements, both from the street course aspect to the permanent built road courses, and then to the ovals. So on the ovals, you've short ovals, and then you've super speedways, which is like Indianapolis. That's probably the quickest one that's on the schedule. At IndyCar qualifying, they average 242 miles an hour in qualifying, so it's pretty quick. And obviously that attribute is what makes it exciting. You know, there's so many different skill sets required to be successful over the course of a year.
And this is in the blood. You're from Kildare, and your uncle Michael was in this realm in the 80s.
That's right, yeah. My uncle Michael Rowe had a career the 80s and 90s in North America. He won the Can-Am Championship in 84 over there, and done IMSA, Japanese sports cars, Le Mans, some IndyCar stuff back in the day. So yeah, he's been a huge attribute to have. In fact, him and Michael Andretti are quite friendly, so the fact that that relationship has now reignited, given we're driving for them, and he can be involved in that process, is something that's pretty fun to be involved in.
How much of a thrill is this?
It's great, it's a job now, so it's something that we take extremely serious. We're very determined to get to where we want to go to. The goal is to be the first Irishman, the Indy 500, in over 4 decades, and the Indy 500 is the single biggest sporting event in the world, period. There's no bigger sporting event than a single day sporting event, for that matter. So naturally, when you're at your goals and aspirations are that big, it takes a lot of effort, and it's very focused, serious operation. So we're just head down and happy to be riding this wave of momentum at the moment.
Is it exhilarating being in the car?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. You know, I guess it's what I love to do and always have. So it's normal now, you know. How
do you feel you improve? How have you got better in the car? Is it working with engineers? Is it a lot of data analysis? What are the factors in that regard?
Yeah, there's a number of factors. Ultimately, it's down to people. At the end of the day, it's a people's business, no different than business or any sport for that matter. The right people in the right place, and that's what we really noticed when we made the switch to Andretti Autosport. Is the team of such scale. You know, they're a global operation racing throughout the world. They naturally have a massive pool of talent to work with, and it took a little bit of a while for things to click there, but now have a phenomenal relationship with the team, and as a result, things start, you know, improving on the track and off the track. So really, it's the hard work that goes on away from the track. You know, I said recently to someone, the attribute that team has, or what it brings, is whether we have a good weekend or a bad weekend, Monday morning's the exact same. You know, everyone's back in the shop working hard, analysing things via data, onboard video, a lot of analysis of split reports and times, and then just using the